And let's continue with Cadfan's Way from the Golden Harp from the Grey King. Will is still trying to remember the words that he lost while he was sick, and he has wandered into a church where they've started to come back to him, but he can't get all the information that he wants on the church. He got a brochure about the town, which he was reading when the video cut off. When he peered through the little book outside, it told him that the Saxons had settled Twin in 516 AD, round the church built by St. Cadfan of Brittany and his holy well, and that the inscribed stone in the church was said to be the oldest piece of written Welsh in existence, and could be translated, "The body of Singen is on the side between where the marks will be. In the retreat beneath the mound is extended Cadfan, sad that it should enclose the praise of the earth. May he rest without blemish." But it said not a word about Cadfan's Way, nor, when he checked, did the leaflet in the church. Will thought, "It is not Cadfan I want, it is his way. A way is a road. A way where the kestrels call must be a road over a moor or a mountain." It pushed even the seashore out of his mind when later he walked absent-mindedly for a while among the breakwaters of the windy beach. When he met his uncle for the ride back to the farm, he found no help there either. "Cadfan's Way?" said David Evans. "You pronounce it Cadfan, by the way. One F is always a V sound in Welsh. Cadfan's Way? No, it does sound a bit familiar, you know. But I couldn't tell you, Will. John Rowlands is the one to ask about things like that. He has a mind like an encyclopedia, does John, full of the old things." John Rowlands was out somewhere on the farm, busy, so, for the time being, Will had to content himself with a much-folded map. He went out with it that afternoon, alone in the sunlit valley, to walk the boundaries of the farm. His uncle had roughly penciled them in for him. Clued was a lowland farm, stretching across most of the valley of the Dysony River. Some of its land was marshy, near the river, and some stretched up the soaring, scree-patched side of the mountain, green and grey and bracken-brown. But most was lush green valley land, fertile and friendly, part of it new-ploughed since the harvest of this year's crops, and all the rest serving as a pasture for square, sturdy Welsh black cattle. On the mountain land, only sheep grazed. Some of the lower slopes had been ploughed, though even they looked so steep to Will that he wondered how a tractor ploughing them could have kept from rolling over. Above those, nothing grew but bracken, groups of wind-warped, scrubby trees and grass. The mountain reared up to the sky, and the deep, aimless call of a sheep came now and then, floating down into the still, warm afternoon. It was by another sound that he found John Rowlands, unexpectedly, as he was walking through one of the cloud fields toward the river, with a high, wild hedge on one side of him and the dark, ploughed soil on the other. He heard a dull, muffled thudding somewhere ahead. Then suddenly, at a curve in the field, he saw the figure moving steadily and rhythmically as if in a slow, deliberate dance. He stopped and watched, fascinated. Rowlands had his shirt half open and a red kerchief tied round his neck, was making a transformation. He moved gradually along the hedge, first chopping carefully here and there with a murderous tool like a cross between an axe and a pirate's cutlass, then setting this down and hauling the interweaving whatever remained of the long, rank growth before him. The hedge grew wild and high, great arms groping out uncontrolled in all directions, as the hazel and hawthorn did their best to grow into full-fledged trees. Behind him, as he moved along his relentless swaying way, he left instead a neat fence, scores of beheaded branches bristling waist-high like spears, with every fifth branch bent mercilessly down at right angles and woven in along the rest of it, as if it were part of a hurdle. Will watched, silent, until Rowlands became aware of him and straightened up, breathing heavily. He pulled the red kerchief loose, wiped his forehead with it, and retied it loosely round his neck. In his creased brown face, the lines beside the dark eyes turned upward just a little as he looked at Will. "I know," he said, his velvet voice solemn. "You are thinking, here is this wonderful healthy hedge full of leaves and hawthorn berries, reaching up to the heavens, and here is a man hacking it down like a butcher joining a sheep, taming it into a horrid little naked fence, all bones and no grace." Will grinned. "Well," he said, "something like that, yes." "Ah!" said John Rowlands. He squatted down on his haunches, resting his axe head down on the ground between his knees and leaning on it. "Do! It's a good job you came along. I cannot go fast as I used to. Well, let me tell you now, if we were to leave this lovely wild hedge the way it is now, and has been for too long, it would take over half the field before this time next year, and even though I am cutting off its head and half its body, all these sad bent-over shoots that you see will be sending up so many new arms next spring that you will hardly notice any difference in it at all." "Now you come to mention it," said Will, "yes, of course, the hedging is just the same at home, in Bucks. It's just that I never actually watched anyone doing it before." "Had my eye on this hedge for a year," John Rowlands said. "It was mixed last winter, like life it is, Will. Sometimes you must seem to hurt something in order to do good for it, but not often a very big hurt, thank goodness." He got to his feet again. "You look more healthy already, Bacton. The Welsh sun is good for you." Will looked down at the map in his hand. "Mr. Rowlands," he said, "can you tell me anything about Cadfan's Way?" The Welshman had been running one tough brown finger along the edge of his mattock. There was a second's pause in the movement. And then the finger moved on. He said quietly, "Now what put that into your head, I wonder?" "I really don't know. I don't really know. I suppose I must have read it somewhere. Is there a Cadfan's Way?" "Oh, yes, indeed," John Rowlands said. "Ludborough Cadfan. No secret about that, though most people these days have forgotten it. I think they have a Cadfan Road in one of the new Turnhausen estates instead. Saint Cadfan was a kind of missionary from France. In the days when Brittany and Cornwall and Wales all had close ties, 1400 years ago, he had his church in town, and a holy well, and he is supposed to have founded the monastery in Inner, that is, in English, Bardsey as well. You know Bardsey Island, where the bird watchers go out, there off the tip of North Wales. People used to visit Joan and go on to Bardsey, and so they say there's an old pilgrim's road that goes over the mountains from Machlaneth, Toon, past Abergynron, and along the side of this valley, no doubt, or perhaps higher up. Most of the old ways go along high places. They were safer there, but nobody knows where to find Cadfan's Way now." "I see," said Will. It was more than enough. He knew that now he would be able to find the way given time, but increasingly he felt that there was little time left, that it was urgent for this quest, so oddly lost by his memory, to be accomplished very soon, on the Day of the Dead. And what was the quest, and where, and why? If only he could remember. John Rowlands turned toward the hedge again. "Well, I'll see you later," Will said. "Thank you. I'm trying to walk all round the edge of the farm." "Take it gently. That is a long walk for a convalescent, the whole of it." Rowlands straightened suddenly, pointing a finger at him in warning. "And if you go up the valley and get to the Craig Ra'arden end that way, make sure you check the boundaries on your map, and do not go off your uncle's land. That is Caradog Pritchard's farm beyond, and he is not kind with trespassers." Will thought of the malicious light-lashed eyes in the sneering face he had seen from the Land Rover with Reese. "Oh," he said, "Caradog Pritchard, all right. Thanks. Tioklin Fur, is that right?" John Rowland's face broke into creases with laughter. "Not bad," he said, "but perhaps you should stick with just Rock. The gentle thud of his axe dwindled behind Will, and was lost in the insect hum of the sunny afternoon, with the scattered calls of birds and sheep. The way that Will was going led sideways across the valley, with the gray-green sweep of the mountain rising always before him. It blocked out more and more of the sky as he walked on. Soon he was beginning to climb, and then the bracken began to come in over the grass in a rustling